Okay, so here we are back again with Lookingglassforum, and we are here to present another interesting point of view. So yeah, we did open with the Tyranny music piece, which I thought was a good representation of some of the Slavic, Eastern European, maybe a little Ukrainian, spirit that's at work within the culture in the region there. And of course, I think we listened to that before. I just didn't really have as much kind of like prescience as it does now. That particular song, maybe.
I love this solid music. This is one of my favorite things to listen to. It's called Roma.
Is that still
from Gypsies? Right. Derogatory, I think. They like to be called Roma, the Roma culture.
And Tyranny is a part of that.
Yeah,
obviously. Yeah. So yeah, Russia's rolling out. I guess it's kind of been. You can see it like building up to that point. So I'm kind of surprised how the news media acted like, like they didn't know what was going on. But we've known for like several years that Putin has pushed up pretty hard on Ukraine. And
and for the past several months, he's been building up his military on the borders.
Yep. At the end of last year and all this year, Biden is really just so weak and so like facile and feckless that they can't really, and they calculated correctly that he would not respond, but then he kind of like responds. And of course, the America's in a bad position too, because we have all of our military adventurism going on for the last several decades. And
yeah, people are sick of war, but this would be a justified war. I don't know if they could keep the atomic bomb and not use it.
Right.
I don't know if we can either.
I mean, nobody wants to lose.
There's short-range atomic bombs. I believe they can be put in howitzers. I'm not sure, but they're minimal damage. But for a regular bomb, the damage is huge. But for an atomic bomb, they're small.
Right.
If they use that, the fucking genie is out of the bottle.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what they would accomplish because Ukraine is right on their border, so you wouldn't want to have an atomic weapon go off so close to your border. But maybe they would use it against some of the enemies. I mean, no one's really slowed down the oil supply. We've been buying oil hand over fist from Russia, and some of the sanctions, I guess, are really hurting the Russian people more than anything. The SWIFT being putting them out of the SWIFT system, so they can't. The actual Russian people can't operate on the. With their debit cards, but at the same time, we're actually funding Putin because we're buying all this oil from him at now exaggerated like high prices. So it's kind of a farce, man.
Yeah, when Trump left office, we were energy dependent and energy independent.
Right.
Yeah, we weren't importing any oil.
No, we were exporting, and
we were exporting. Yeah,
they had to work overtime to shut all that production down. They must have been running all over the place, flying all over the place, sending letters and lawyers, and just shutting everything down. And now we've just given the advantage, and the whole momentum over to Russia now, as he's kind of got his oil supplies completely ramped up. So yeah, it's a tough spot. America, our democracy is retarded, and it's bipolar. But I have to still say that I just don't believe that Biden is a duly elected real president. He just seemed like that they ran a huge fraud, a campaign of fraud, and
he's their front man.
Yeah, they just totally sabotaged. Like think about the progress of technology over the last 20 years. If you go back 20 years, like Karate Kid, there really wasn't the infrastructure. The internet didn't exist enough yet for there to be like technotronic manipulations of elections. But now, here in 2020, it was not a problem. They had Wi-Fi, they had modems everywhere. It was easy for them to like hack in and manipulate the results. And of course, there wasn't 83 million Biden voters that just don't exist. And there's even less support for him now, than ever. So if he really won with 83 million, which is like 10 million more than Barack Obama at his height of fame and power, then where's all the support for the guy? It doesn't exist. And so we're in a stage now where our democracy has been totally reduced to just, like I said, technotronic control. It's a technocracy. They can easily just control the outcome more easily than ever, So.
And imagine if something happened to Biden and we had President Harris, or something happened to both of them and we had President Pelosi.
Yeah.
What a dystopic future that would be.
Yeah, it's like what is it? Mad Max in the Thunderdome hits.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I think it's amazing how right now these individuals like Biden, I mean, they've built up they've sold their souls. They built their entire lives up to this like final moment where he's too old to handle it, but he's the president, and he really doesn't have anything to look forward to except for really the end of his life. So he's just kind of
why
demented. He's demented.
Why not be the hero? Why not be the world hero and do something that's besides follow?
No, I don't think he's got it in him. If you just look at him carefully, even in the content of his character and his personality, and he just doesn't swing. He doesn't have it. He has nothing there. And
I don't believe he's a bad person. He's not fit to lead.
No. It's really just the same people that were. Remember when the Trump administration came in, they were being kind of like harassed and investigated by the FBI. Who was trying to set them up? James Comey, FBI. Those same individuals are just back, So it was just a very brief interlude from the deep state culture, the Clintonistas, so on and so forth. You know what I mean? So that whole war machine is back now. It doesn't surprise me that they're just letting there be an engagement, and so they can all be hypocrites because Putin is only doing what America has done repeatedly, 10 times in the last several decades by going into another country. And so their reasons are probably even more legit. I'm not defending Russia. I'm just pointing out that we don't really have a leg to stand on right now. That's kind of why there's really no ability to take any action, because we've really worn it out as far as all of our reasons to go to war and all of the excuses that we make as a country to activate our troops. We really don't have any kind of leg to stand on, as far as like an argument to be made, because we sound like huge hypocrites. We still have our troops stationed all over the world, and NATO puts a lot of pressure on Russia. And now we have a weak president, and that guy just called our bluff, And they saw what happened in Afghanistan. Afghanistan just completely collapsed, And everyone ran. They ran for the hills and just left everything.
Too.
Yeah, so it shouldn't surprise us that with that power vacuum in the world, that people are going to read it and take advantage of it. And now we have to recognize that Taiwan is like Silicon Valley
It's
East,
the next one up all.
or West. Yeah, it's where all the chips are made. And if they can take that, they can take all that technology and just, then we'll be in a really bad position to create the kind of technology and the weapons that we need to defend against it as they build up. And Yeah, it's a tough spot, but it doesn't surprise me. America has been so corrupt, and they were so desperate to get power back in Washington, D.C., and with the presidency. I think that they expected Hillary to win, and I think they probably would have had some of these situations with Putin already kind of like ready to go, I think Hillary was always talking about the old confrontation and the old kind of military balance against Russia. That was her main thing, is that she always talked about, She would be the one to show down Putin or to stand him down or, to look him down or whatever. So she
President Hillary, that's going to be a possibility.
That's all Biden represents. It's just another rehash of the Obamas and the Clintons and that whole. You saw them all together in New York City when they took the picture up there with Biden. It's just all them. It's that whole crowd, that whole like power cartel is behind this, and they're running the deep state. So now I feel bad for John Durham because he's got the Durham report. He's got to finish his an independent counsel. He's got to finish his whole investigation of what happened exactly with Trump at the beginning there. But it's like so many years goes by. I mean, no one's ever held accountable. The FBI is completely corrupt, and there's no apparatus by which you can watch the watchers or hold these people accountable. So they're that's why I call them the new Stasi. They're just a new political power agency. It's there just to protect the party and make sure that no one is outside the plantation there.
No one's not far left.
Well, I mean,
Biden answered to Republican values in the speech. A lot of them.
Yeah, I never watched it. I mean, I just kind of crashed out, and I've seen him like he's getting old, and I don't want to like sit there and stare at him. But I know that he would try to do the speech, and he would try to say the thing, but Kamala Harris is scary. When I read an article that she was over at the NATO summit, and that it was just painful. It was like humiliating and embarrassing, and she was basically completely out of her league. And that some of the other representatives said that, quote unquote, it was painful to listen to her. So we're in like bad way. I mean, these people are so like conceited and they're so consumed with their own will to power or whatever it is that they'll never step aside and be like, look, you know what? This probably isn't for me. The fate of the whole country is riding on this. Let me just, someone like Kamala Harris would just step into the role of presidency with such presumption and such arrogance. That, you know what I mean? Because they're clutching power pigs, man.
Well, I don't know.
I just hate Kamala. She prosecuted a bunch of people for weed charges and among other things. I don't even know how she got a law license to prosecute.
And she said that she smoked weed.
Right.
She was on a radio talk show. I just saw a clip of it. I don't remember what she said, but it was something to the
Charlemagne the God. I mean, what kind of pretentious asshole has a name like that? Charlemagne the God. What an asshole. So she goes on that asshole show, and she literally says that she smoked weed, and her people are from Jamaica, and she gets down, and then I'm thinking, like, how many prison hours did people do over her, like, prosecuting weed charges? Like, it's just, they're just pigs, man. They're the pigs. Like, you got to recognize that she has no value. She just somehow slimed her way all the way to the top. And if you remember the Democrat convention, I paid attention last time, and Biden and Harris were at the bottom. Of 11 candidates, they were at the very bottom. They were like 10 and 11.
Harris was at the bottom.
So how did the two bottommost people become the fucking front runners? It's just so fucked up. Look, Biden has been in Washington, D.C., and has been running elections for 40 years. You know how to cheat? They paused the election at like 10 o'clock, and everyone saw like just shut down, like universal shutdown of the count. And then an hour and a half, 2 hours later, I already fell asleep. It was like fucking midnight. They started counting again, and everything just changed, So it's obvious that it was just, the fix was in, and they're still running different all throughout the different counties and different states. They're still running people to redo the recounts. That shit's still happening today. So in various areas, like throughout Pennsylvania, like people did not let that go. So I think
Trump needs to be very outspoken right now. I know he is.
They really kicked his head in because they took him off Twitter, which is like he was the president of the United States, and they just took him down. You see what I'm saying?
What's up with that? How could they do that? Because he didn't represent their point of view.
Yeah. Simple as that. He was saying things they did not like. He was exposing a big deep state facade that we're all supposed to believe. I think he was. I think he was going to make. He wasn't going with the program. At least that's how it's meant to appear. That's how it does appear from our vantage point. But there's really no telling. But it seemed to me that they were showing that they controlled the internet, the apps, devices. The ability for people to operate at banks, at Chase Manhattan Bank, people were getting debanked. The whole process of getting deplatformed is real. That kind of censorship is huge. People are under massive pressure not to say the wrong thing because they will be at the at the mercy of the digital mob. And so I think it's the wealthier people. The more money you make, the more woke you have to be, and more conscious of other people's lifestyles and just kind of savvy on how people, what I'm saying? You're supposed to just take all the different leftist values, for granted. But it's really just the bourgeoisie. It's just the poor people, the poor working class people that smoke Marlboros and believe in QAnon folks.
Yeah.
Those are the people that really are just spun out and are really the target. They're like the people that wear the red Trump hat. And all this nationalism and all this political energy they're become the fulcrum point, So you have to be kind of wise to the nature of politics, and it just pits two different forces against each other. So you can see that on one side they have the Antifa people that like to go and create riots and create police chaos, and then they can beat the hell out of people in the middle of it, and then just go home because they're all wearing masks. And so you can see that on the other side is the patriot community, and really just getting those two different groups to meet on the right night at the right time and have that kind of political chaos that's already built in. So
I wonder if there's a Hegelian dialectic shaping up. Surely there is.
No, I think there is. I think
Russia's creating the problem, the antithesis. Somebody's got to take charge. Schultz, president of Germany, or prime minister, or whatever his title is.
Yeah, that's another thing. He pulled this stunt right when Angela Merkel was stepping down. There's a new German prime minister, so they're kind of it's a new administration. They're not really savvy yet. They're just new. So Angela Merkel probably had more irons in the fire. She probably had more reading of the lay of the land, having been in the job, but it's just this kind of change to a new German administration, and it catches him off guard. So Putin really, he's just, he's doing it because obviously there's an opening there to do it. And
if Ukraine, why not Poland? Why not, he's got Belarus. Why not?
He's already warning Estonia and Latvia. Yeah, he's already warning them that they better not help arm Ukraine. So Poland too, if they offer support to Ukraine, who's reaching out to the Europeans, then obviously they could make them a military target too, and then it just goes from there. And really, it's about, is there anyone willing to contest Russia's power? So I heard that he had riots in the streets in Moscow, and that they were rounding up people that were basically getting pissed and starting to.
Yeah, 20-year prisons for speaking out against the government.
Right.
20-year prison sentences.
Yeah, I don't know if that's going to be able to. The people have to just. It's like gulags, they're back to that.
I mean, Putin had it good for a while. He was popular. He was popular among Russians, popular among Americans. I mean, he did have some. Some good things that he did, but. And, a lot of the news sources are questioning his sanity, and I'm wondering if that is just basically...
we should probably question his sanity too, but it makes me think that by his reading and by looking at all the different facets of it, like there was an opening there, and there was a chance to do this, and the leadership is so weak. The politics in America is so destabilized. There's no will here. That, you know what I mean? There's no support for the president or for the vice president. I mean, they're in the low 30s. They're going to stay that way. And most of the American people, the 83 million Americans who went and voted for Trump, and they're pissed off. So, I mean, it's obvious that, there's a new German administration. Europe is weak. They should have already included Ukraine into NATO and into that defense alliance. They should already, Ukraine's sitting there like a huge pork chop. It's not protected under NATO. They're not included in the EU. So, what was going to happen? It was obvious that, Putin made a huge move on Crimea with the first Bush presidency, and ever since then, it's just kind of been like a slow chess match. And now we weren't ready, and there's no will. And we've been doing we've invaded Afghanistan, we invaded Iraq, we invaded like all the other places we put our troops at. And we had battles. We had a lot of people killed. We justified our reasons for doing it. So now we have no ability to actually open our mouths and say anything. We all can feel it, all of us. Doesn't matter what side of the political dialectic we're on. Even Biden really can't say much because we can't tell Putin not to do the same shit that we do all the time. You know what I mean? So it seems to me that he created.
He created
a justification.
We had in theory, had a right to invade Afghanistan, but Iraq was a sovereign nation, such as they were.
Yeah, no, I think that from Russia's point of view, they have dangerous actors and liberation fighters and so on that they have to deal with. And the fact is that Ukraine is being drawn into NATO and that defense, and now put NATO right up against Russia. So there was a conflict over, whether Ukraine is going to be able to be used as a wedge against Russia with NATO, and I guess they just answer that question that NATO is not going to be protecting Ukraine, and so that's what you're dealing with. You're dealing with the fact that we pushed Russia all this time with the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. And with it just kind of was built for this to happen. That's how it looks like to me. It seems like we created an environment where it would certainly happen. Think about Burisma, which is the huge gas oil company in Ukraine, and they were sending Hunter Biden like just under $200,000 a month, and had him as one of the executives on the board. And Hunter Biden was serving as a go-between for the vice president during the Obama administration. So there's been some shit cooking there for a while. The corruption in Ukraine is intense. So it doesn't surprise me that Putin's going to go there and just put all that in check,
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me that Biden might not be a little relieved that the records for his son are probably destroyed.
Yeah, because Kiev is going to change hands here, and even if it doesn't, even if they push the Russians back, like the whole environment is totally changed. So they turned that stable world upside down. So it's just part of the Clinton playbook. They did the same thing with Muammar Gaddafi. Same thing. They just will just turn your country into a hellscape war zone at any given time. That's the part of dealing with having these people in your country. And you had the CIA being run by the Obama administration for 8 years, for 2 terms. So that's a different kind of world, than the American people who are out here fishing with their fishing rods and their pickup trucks. I don't think they understand the kind of world that the deep state was busily building. And when that backlash comes, it's not going to be to the executives in the CIA or in the FBI. It's going to come in the form of military action against America, or the terrorist strikes. That's the kind of thing that's the kind of price the Americans pay when their political leaders are just into just global utopianism and just this fantasy world of a one world order.
You remind me of something that's a little off topic, but it's in the Obama administration. Don't you find it conspiratorial to the fact that Osama was shot by SEAL Team 6? SEAL Team 6 crashed in a helicopter accident. They got Osama bin Laden, and they killed him, and they took him and buried him at sea. Does that not speak to you in some way?
Yeah, I mean, to me, the way I look at it, the way that the State Department rolls like that, I mean, you have these kind of young princes in Saudi Arabia who are millionaires, and you got this guy, bin Laden, and he wants to take his little terrorist fighters and go out with equipment and practice, fighting jihad in the desert, and and prepare.
Well, I mean, he was trained. He was trained by the CIA. He was an operative against the Russians when the Russians were in Afghanistan.
Right. That's right. That's exactly right.
Everything seems connected. I guess it's just me. I don't know. It just seems like...
No, he was the perfect cutout to use to put for this 9/11 attack, to place blame on someone, to give the American people a face to hate, this individual. And so it looks like the ties, if you just do a little Google search and look into some different writings, the tie between the Bush family and the bin Laden family, it existed because there was a large bin Laden construction company. And apparently, if you're going to be a construction company in Mecca and Medina and the holiest sites of Islam, you have to be pretty highly connected. So, of course, the Bush administration, the father, the senior, is connected to the bin Laden construction family. And so bin Laden, of course, bin Laden's going to have like 15 different sons, maybe more. And, it turns out that one of the sons was useful and probably came to the West to be educated, at least flew into New York Harbor at least one time when he was younger. And so he liked to play jihadi. And I don't believe that he was the one who orchestrated the attacks on 9/11. I'm sure he wished that he could, but I think that it seems to me that they were going to have a sudden military and societal emergency. They were going to crash the planes into the buildings, and they were going to collapse the buildings, and they were going to use it for a reason to go to war. And I think that as time bears out, you'll see that it becomes more and more plain that these events happened during the time of a certain president's administration, and it's during their time that they have power to do such things.
2 years earlier, I believe it was 2 years. Wolfowitz, remember him? Yeah. Wolfowitz had a doctrine, and it was the neocon doctrine, and George Bush stepped into the role. But one of the things that stood out to me more than anything is that Wolfowitz, in his doctrine, said that he wanted our military to go to action again, but in order to do that, we would need a catastrophe on the level of Pearl Harbor.
Right.
And then 2 years later, there's 9/11. And false flags are an integral part of war.
Right. No, of course.
And
all war is based on deception, like we were saying.
Yeah. And the art of war.
And so you can see that there was some strange things that happened with Larry Silverstein. He took over the World Trade Centers.
$4 billion is what he got out of it.
In insurance, yep.
Yeah.
So he takes over.
And he was shooting for double indemnity because there were two planes, but
right.
They didn't give him that.
Now, I think that it would have been very expensive to take those buildings down. They were very old, They had already been attacked, and what was it previously in 1990? Would be too specific here, but it was the first somebody
that the blind shake.
Right, so they set off the bombs in the parking garage below.
Yeah.
Of course, it turns out that those particular devices were supplied to them by the FBI, which you can follow up on that on previous shows. Yeah, previous shows we exposed that. The simple fact that the FBI played an important role in supplying the bombs for the first 9/11 attack in the 90s, and then of course we're going to have 9/11 and building 9. There was a building 7. Building 7, right.
7.
So Building 7, everyone should look that up.
No plane hit it.
Right, no plane hit it. It was outside the destruction.
It came down as a controlled demolition is what it was.
Right.
And they didn't just suddenly do it then. I mean,
it took them a couple
weeks
hours
to get all the charges set.
Right.
And it came down right in its footprint, just like the other two did.
Yeah, they were all controlled demolitions, and it's going to take people time to step out of the cognitive dissonance and to just come back out of the narrative that has their minds totally enslaved, and to recognize that it was definitely an inside operation that did 9/11. And it's something that happened during the Bush administration, and it's something that's just terribly horrible to say. You know, people would rather just believe in the enemy. It reminds me of the book 1984 of like double speak, or black white.
Yeah.
Just people not understanding like that their brains are and their response is being controlled by a media algorithm and a social media narrative that just controls what we're basically allowed to say, what's polite speech. It's a powerful instrument that we have here, you know. We carry around these phones with us everywhere, and each phone has 50 apps. Each of those apps are probably billion-dollar companies, and they have permission now to follow you around, look at your microphone, look at your location data here, and see everything you do with this device, because you gave them permission to do it, you know, so that you can use the app.
Yeah.
And so the app provides some kind of service to you, but really they're getting all this information on how we live. They're building AI, and they're learning how to manage the global plantation. I think that's what we're getting back to, is as the idea of nationalism dissolves. So the idea of like sovereign nations who are independent, who are a law unto themselves, who can dictate their own terms and their own laws, that kind of dissolves in this atmosphere of World Health Organization and United Nations control. So it's a one world government of treaties and controlling supranational bodies that start to dictate what other countries are going to be allowed to do. It's like the World Economic Forum, same thing. The Party of Davos, they're just a party of elite. They're really the creditors. So as the rest of the American people have to borrow the Federal Reserve note, and we have to borrow more trillions and trillions more of bank credit, we're the debtors, and the creditors are just really putting us into hock, you know, and we're going deeper and deeper into it. So I think they're looking far ahead at a situation where the people themselves have totally succumbed to the penury and to the debasement of the international banks, and we can no longer, at this point, really afford to pay, because we have a volunteer military fighting force. They're not pressed into service, they're paid, and when they can no longer be paid, I don't know what that will mean. You know what I mean? So we have
right now, Biden should he should really put out a lot of ads, not him, but the military, to
join,
seek recruitment.
Right.
Because, I mean, that at least shows a little balls.
Well,
and that may rush a pause.
Yeah, it's hard for us to interject ourselves with our troops from halfway around the world to. It's like us having some kind of military dispute with Mexico, and then the Russians fly over and put their troops in the middle of it. It's just a hard spot to be in. Like, I think the best thing we can do, and what we have been doing, is giving the Ukrainian fighting forces certain ballistic shoulder-fired missiles that can basically blow their tanks up. And if we just keep giving them those, because it's just like a point, laser, click, boom, like you and me could probably do it, right? Because they're advanced shoulder-fired missiles, tank killers. So if you really want to just change the dynamic, you just keep them stockpiled with those kind of weapons and let them just annihilate the Russians, So but it feels so kind of like morbid to talk about in these terms, because the Russians, they're probably not. It looks like they have a lot of their guys that, from my reports, have been like putting holes in their gas tanks, drilling holes in their, so they run out of gas, and so basically they can't move forward. There's a little bit of sabotage going on. I don't think there's any kind of heart for this maneuver. And you know that they've been doing all these military games, and so one day the military games becomes military real, and they're like they showed up. And I think
he wants to build a base.
I think he realizes.
I think he wants to build a base.
He talked to Biden
near Poland.
He talked to Biden. Biden's completely dead in the water. The guy is so corrupt that he can't say shit. They might release the photos. There's got to be some photos of this guy. He's just so shut up. And whatever sanctions they're doing are just nothing. So,
do you think Putin didn't calculate the most severest of sanctions?
No, I think it
was. He knew that would be the first, shot.
Right.
Sanctions.
No, I think
then you only have war to go to. After if sanctions don't work, you have to go to war.
The Russian country is the most off-the-grid nation in all of the nations of the world. So they're the least affected by our bullshit. The manipulations that we do, they're the most able to withstand the influence from the West, And but I think it's really just the popularity in the streets. That's the problem he has. And the Russian people have to just kind of figure that out, because the Ukraine's their neighbor. And I always wondered, why don't we just go down to Mexico as America and just take over the rest of the peninsula and just make it 3 more states? We don't need that's the same situation. We have to kind of think about that.
Because they're a sovereign nation, such as they are.
Yeah, but at the same time, what would our justifications be? Well, you guys have 3 different military-level cartels, billion-dollar transnational criminal syndicates in your country. They're killing off the politicians and the judges and all the different people that run democracy in Mexico. They have to basically pay the cartels or get offed. So it's because of the cartels that are poisoning the whole environment that we would just roll down and just put them out of existence and just free the Mexican people to have their own. They could send their own senators and representatives up to Washington. They could have regular people changing the trash. It would be it would be paradise, And we just get rid of the cartels. No more drug shipments of fentanyl coming over the border, which it just can't be good, man. Fentanyl is just it's so dangerous.
It's so powerful. I had it in patches one time.
Right.
For my I have a bad disc, and I got the patches, and it takes about 10 hours to get into your system, but when it does, it's strong.
So imagine them having they cook up their own and have huge bales of the powder that can kill 10,000 people. That's my concern. Just it seems like a suicide drug or just a toxic. It's just it's like Cyclone B. It's just so poisonous. You wouldn't take very much just to kill a lot of people with it. It's very dangerous. And I don't know what the head change is on it. If it gives you a good buzz, but it just
they substitute it for heroin. They cut it down to where it's mild as heroin, which sounds like an oxymoron, but they have to bring it down to the level of heroin, and they give it to people, but they're not chemists. They can't mix that stuff right. One person might get a 1 dose, and one person might get 10 doses, and it looks the same.
Yeah, how would you know? How would you know where? Yeah, the little strong sections.
How would you know?
Yeah, you wouldn't, and that's what happened. I guess it's like an outbreak. Americans all across the United States are finding this in their drugs, so they want to go out and get high. They go buy some drugs, and then there's some fentanyl laced in your drugs, and now you're dead. You know. And there's carfentanil, and apparently carfentanil is like 100 times stronger. So I don't know who's making this shit, but it's definitely not. Yeah, it's definitely no good. And we have an invasion on the southern border. We had 200,000 people come in undocumented, last year.
Biden says he's going to take action for that now. He's closing the border. I don't know what that means, if it's true or not.
Yeah, they said they were going to start.
One thing that was missing from his speech was the 13 Americans that were killed in Afghanistan.
Right.
And nothing about the evacuation of Afghanistan.
Weren't they 18-year-olds? Wasn't that like their first day at the military post? They show up.
I think I remember that story, yeah.
They show up, they get off the plane, they get sent to their post, and they get blown up in the same day. Like, that was their first week in military service. It's amazing. And then he starts checking his watch when they bring him back. And this is your sons and daughters. My son is interested in joining the Florida National Guard. Looks like he's going to do it, too, so.
That might be a good idea.
I mean, I'm concerned.
I think that, well, I don't know. I think it's a safe thing to do.
It looks like DeSantis has said that he's pulling his Florida National Guard, because he's the commander-in-chief of the Florida National Guard, right? So he said he's pulling his guys out, and they're not going to send him for active duty or whatever. But yeah, it's a thing of concern, just to think that your young people could be put in the military and serve Joe Biden. That's why I was so particular about the National Guard, because it's just not safe. If you don't have a smart commander,
the Coast Guard is good.
Yeah, my dad was telling me about that.
Military. I don't know what they pay, but that's a safe bet. And then you're literally defending your own home, not going over to defend someone else's home.
Which, I think that it's good to do that, but we spent a lot of our nation-building capital, like all the excuses that we give the world, and then the whole debacle in Afghanistan. Like Modi in India, like these different prime ministers are different in Japan. Abe, the different like political leaders of these countries must think that we're crazy over here, because we had Trump, then we had this huge debacle, then we have Biden, and he just lets Afghanistan fall into this tribal warlord, hands of the Taliban, and so it's just horrifying to think that we all, so many of our sons' lives, Americans, gave their lives over there.
All the people that died, and we cut and ran.
Right. What was the point of even going there in the first place? I'm trying to figure that part out. I guess 80% of the world's opium is there. So do we just have to do a stockpile run, get some extra flour sacks full of opium, fly them home to the State Department, and then we're all full?
We have plenty of opiates coming through in the form of fentanyl.
Yeah. Well, it's not really an opiate, but its molecule is shaped like it, I guess. Close enough.
What is Karl Marx's, what is it? The opiate of the masses? I can't remember.
Well, religion.
Religion, okay.
But religion
that makes
probably
sense
true.
For him.
But our relationship with God and our faith are not religion, so just empty.
Religion is its own thing. Yeah. Right.
People fill up their time with it and mark the days on their calendar with it, but it doesn't get them any closer to understanding God or themselves, or there's no progression. Especially people it reminds me of the Renaissance period during the Ottoman Empire, when they weren't just broken down into these tribalistic, ritualistic strictures. But they actually invented algebra, and they took geometry from where the Greeks had left it and took it farther, and there was this several century period where Islam was the new renaissance of intellectual development on the earth, right?
Yeah, when they were
Suleiman the Magnificent.
Look at the mosque and the architecture of Andalusia in Spain.
Right.
I mean, that's enlightened stuff.
So, but at this point, Islam has taken on this new character, this kind of like ISIS, where you have these guys who stay in the huts and then they don't read anything at all except for the Quran only. So there's no development of medicine or science or geometry or math. They just only read the Quran, and so they, that's just not how the Ottoman Empire was previously. Though, you see what I'm saying? They were actually a geopolitical state. They had to have diplomats. They had to have the complexity and the sophistication of running a country. They couldn't just only read the Quran only, because I mean, how dysfunctional would you be if you could only read one book? You feel me?
And your women are covered. That's.
I think during the Ottoman period, the women were covered like sexily, and then this current period, they're just cover them in a tarp and beat them with a stick. It's just like a retrogression of society and civilization rather than a progression. So I think that you have to recognize that different parts of the world are being influenced by our State Department, and the influence in the creation of ISIS too, the arming of certain radical groups. That's the kind of like work that these guys have been doing. That we need to put, Washington D.C., the national government, into a position of limitation. We need to limit it. It's just like the Constitution. We need to limit their power. We need to determine, how many, privileges and rights they have. As far as this unlimited tyranny that's running there now on executive orders, that's not constitutional. It just can't be permitted. It has to be called out and recognized. The people don't know that the national government was not established under the Constitution. So that's something that came later on.
Someone should do a paper, and they should outline the bogeyman throughout history, because it switches from one thing to another. We're coming out of COVID, and now it's Putin.
Right. No.
Before that, it was who was it before that? It was
a lot
9/11.
Donald Trump. It was 9/11. It was the continuous 9/11 fear.
And then the Muslims in general, and now it's Putin. So rest assured that after he's gone, it'll be somebody else or something else. And the news just, all the stations right now, it's nothing but Russia.
Right.
What else is happening?
No more Anthony
Fauci. What would have been on if
Anthony Fauci.
Russia invade?
No, it would have been Anthony Fauci on there showing us some more medicine techniques or whatever he does.
Better masks.
Yeah, I don't watch it. I have a couple of like Hulu. I have a couple of them where I try to see some new movies, and I just don't watch the TV. I can't do it. If it doesn't come through to me on the internet, like on Facebook or something, I just don't get it. So, but I have Getter now, which is really good. I mean, people should try that one out.
What is it?
It's a Getter.
Will you send me a link?
Yeah, I'll send you a link. But it's just like a new Twitter. It's one of the fastest growing social media websites. So it's not like, it doesn't have an algorithm that controls speech. It doesn't put little labels over, like they don't do the fact checking thing on you. So it's one of those kind of deals. It's free speech, man. So I like it.
Yeah.
But
I think I'm going to wrap it up, Sean.
All right. Anything else you want to touch on?
Let's stay in touch on Facebook.
All right, but yeah, you're going to check out Getter, though? I'll send you the link, but I don't know if...
Yeah, send me a link. I'll check it out now.
Okay. So you have anything else?
I'll look for you, I guess.
What else have you been busy doing?
That, nothing really. I've been putting on weight, I guess. Not a little bit.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, I gotcha.
I haven't been busy doing anything, but researching.
Yep. I gotcha. I do the same thing.
All right, well, I'll talk to you soon, man.
All right, bro. Peace.
Send that link.
All right. Gotcha.
All right, bye.
We were just discussing the issues at hand. And it's late. We work hard. I mean, we don't always have a lot of time. We try to put together a podcast. It's hard work. And but we just want to bring forth some of the journalistic values that are missing in today's kind of corporate media, which is like propaganda network. So here we are sitting here drinking some coffee.
Yeah.
And
well, I was thinking earlier that if you told me that I would be a Republican 20 years ago, I would have slapped you in the face. But the Democratic Party is just, I don't know, they're like some sort of robots or something. I don't know. I can't explain it.
Well,
the things that they do is just, and their attitude and their control system.
Yeah, to hear like Mark Levin talk about it, he talks like how the left, whatever that is, amorphous term, took over the Democrat Party and started to change it, kind of change the scope of what it is. And so originally the Democrat Party was the party of the Confederacy in the South. So Abraham Lincoln was a Republican, and Jefferson Davis in the South, the Confederacy, like we said, was a Democrat. And they believed in democracy in as much as that they had the right to choose to be in the Union and so on. And so you can imagine that the original KKK, the Knights of the Ku Klux Klan, were Democrats. And now those kind of values are not really present in the party of the Democrat Party, but they kind of changed form, and they have these kind of hardcore European radical communists that took over the party. You know what I mean? The Bill Ayers.
Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, the Bill Ayers, the Barack Obama, the Bernie Sanders, but they have nothing really to do with the original roots of the Democrat Party. It's just a vehicle for them now.
Yeah.
So, I don't think the original Democrat Party was a leftist organization, so to speak. And then there you go, left and right are just terms that just denote an idea. And it's the
well, what's Biden gonna do? Are we gonna go to war? I think we're gonna go to war.
Yeah, I mean,
I think it's gonna be the worst war ever.
Yeah.
I don't know what's making. Usually, I'm optimistic, but I can't escape it. I just know what's going to happen.
Well, you can see that how much power they have over the culture and over the social mentality. Like the way the COVID-19 thing hit, everyone's masked up. Everyone just mass psychosis hit. Everyone was like terrified. People that didn't know how to act in public. They didn't want to. There was no like formal law that was passed. There's no like law in the books that says you had to like wear a mask or follow these rules, but it was like the social shaming effect of an idea across the entire society, that got everyone to operate together to stem the tide of the virus or what have you. And if you didn't want to wear a mask, then you were a nonconformist, and you were kind of framed as not very thoughtful to other people because you were endangering other people by not protecting yourself. Like we had to go through all that the struggle session of all that for several years. It's a crippling and toxic.
And the stats haven't really changed that much, and now it's you don't really need a mask that much,
right?
Unless you go to a doctor's office or something, or where else I wear a mask the other day. It was some store that required a mask.
You can just tell when like people are doing it. It's like an irresistible force to try to you can stand out and not do it, but then what is it? It's all psychological. What did you achieve? You come back the next day, you feel differently. You wear it that day. Like it's just weird, and the CDC came out with their guidelines, I think like 2 days ago, that said that healthy Americans, no longer need to wear masks. So, but everywhere I look, people are still doing it. And they've been trained, like Pavlov's dogs, right? They've been trained to wear the mask, so it's going to be a long while before they let it go.
Pretty soon they'll just draw a mask on their face and or tattoo a mask.
Yeah, just use, Yep.
Well, my mother had it and my daughter had it, and I was around them when they were contagious. Not purposely, but just it was unavoidable. And I didn't get it, but I got the vaccine. So,
well, if you get,
I drank the Kool-Aid.
Well, the vaccine is supposed to give you an immune response, so that there's all these antibodies. So if you were around someone and your antibodies were up, then it didn't get through and it didn't affect you, right? Yeah. So that's cool. But I just wonder about these later variants. The Omicron kind of down the line. I wonder if it defends as well against those later variants.
Omicron's such an ominous name.
Right.
Omicron.
But apparently it had like a very diluted effect. Like the symptoms were very like kind of mild. That was what I heard reported. And I didn't get the vaccine. I just took the brunt of whatever infections and pathogenic viruses were in the area, and they hit me. I'll lay down for a couple days, and then try to recover with vitamins. And
that's probably the best course of action, really.
Yeah, I'm younger, so I mean, I wasn't as endangered as some older people. I'm sure were concerned about that, just taking a direct hit. But I think it's good for your immune system, because now my immune system is adjusted to these new information. These new infections, and I think my immunity is up. And if I come in contact with it again, my body will probably just kill it. Without having any symptoms. So, but no,
the pink elephant in the room.
Well, I mean, where's Anthony Fauci at? I mean, that was like a lot of like powerful brainwashing propaganda we experienced there.
Seriously,
they just pulled him out. They just like got the hook around the neck and he yanked him off the stage and he's gone.
He's the highest paid federal employee that's in America.
Truly a Jesuit, if there ever was one. Just a mastermind behind the scenes.
He smacks a Jesuit. Yeah.
Yep.
The Society of Christ.
Yeah. He's got to be coming from those backgrounds. You can see how efficient he handled it. Yeah, totally.
I can see him with a little priestly cap on.
Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, Anthony Fauci. Yeah, he's all the way in there. But the Georgetown set. Sometimes I listen to Steve Bannon's show, The War Room, and it's funny because they had this guy on there who's like, you need to. This is a Lenten diet book. So it's a Lenten diet book. It's a diet book for Lent, right? Which is kind of weird.
Yeah, you lost me on that. Wow.
Yeah, that kind of hit me hard. Yeah, it hit me kind of hard. I was like, Lenten diet book. But on Lent, they're supposed to not eat. They're fast anyway. And so I was thinking, how ironic it was a Lenten diet book on Steve Bannon's show. But no, I mean, as Protestants, I mean, we just don't really do Lent. It's kind of super added pagan dimensions to the religion that people get caught up in, I guess.
I don't understand it. I know the ashes from Palm Sunday are used for the next year's crosses on the forehead.
That seems very sacerdotal.
It seems a bit pagan.
No, I mean, typically I just recognize that the Lord went in Passover and was crucified, and they were under a lot of pressure because of the Sabbath period, so they wanted to hurry up and kill him faster. And
right.
So it was really just Passover was the central focus, and the Easter thing is kind of weird because every year it's at a different date because they They have to divine the Easter holiday's date by the first new moon of spring. So that's how that works. So when you know what the first new moon of spring is, the following Sunday is Easter. So that's why Easter always, like every year, it's always like flops around on different spots on the calendar because
it's always a Sunday.
I think so. They always set it up to be the Sunday following, whatever. Mm-hmm. So it's a moon thing. You know, that's what Easter or Estrus or Astarte or Ishtar. Yeah.
Ishtar.
They're all the same. Isis. They're all the different languages pronunciation of the same goddess, who is really like Semiramis,
which is an offshoot of the Sumerian. Who was it in the Bible? He was a mighty hunter.
Oh, Nimrod, right?
Nimrod, Semiramis, and Tammuz.
Exactly.
It's the
unholy trinity.
The unholy trinity, yeah.
And people always try to point out that Mithras and all these other like sun deities come out of that same pattern, and so does like Horus and Isis and Ra or however that goes in Egypt. It's the same kind of trinity, and so people like to point out that somehow that
supposedly I don't know if this is true, but I've heard it several times from different sources. The IHS in his service is Isis, Horus, Seth, which makes some sense. Seth, I don't know where Horus fits into that though.
Right.
And he was the evil brother.
Yeah.
Or he's the evil brother-in-law of Isis.
Yeah, but it took the same pattern that the Babylonian system had because it came after. And so all the subsequent pagan empires had the same kind of working religious themes and devotional characters, so that their gods were these same, mother-father duality. So, in Rome they had Gaius and Gaia. Does that sound right? But yeah, no, they had to have this sun and moon motif, this black and white kind of. And it's the same thing if you look in the Old Testament. The priests of Baal and the priestesses of Ashtaroth were separated, male and female. They were separated, and the men would wear the black, and the females would wear the white. So there was this in the ancient Babylonian mysticism. You can see the black and white duality is the symbolism of magic and the occult power system. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So
black and white tiles.
Right. So that's the foundational part of the aspect of it, I think. And that's how we are racially too now as a society, where we're broken down racially as blacks and whites. And the Freemasons walk on the black and white tiles beneath their feet when they do their rituals, and that's a symbol of their power, magical power. So we as black and whites are like the low, base, chaotic forces that need to be controlled. You know what I mean? That's what it means in Masonic terms.
I worked with a guy who he just went through all the necessary degrees to become worshipful master in the Prince Hall fraternity, and he was such a terrible person. And he was just awful.
Was he criminal?
He was so high and had such an ego boost from Freemasonry that it was just sitting me.
Wow.
He had the jewelry and everything was Freemason. Everything was related to Freemasonry with him. But he didn't preach it. But he sure as hell wore the clothes, and I'm surprised his nail apron didn't have a Masonic symbol on it.
Right.
That would have been fitting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not impressed. I mean, I guess it's a mechanism by which effectively utilizes and controls men in the fraternal sense. Like, it kind of gives you that whole like little league, young boy, attaboy pat on the back kind of gets you going,
Right.
And guys who don't really have a direction, or they have this kind of void where religion it should be. That's how Scientology gets you. That's how Mormons get you, because there's a space for where people are kind of gullible and they'll believe anything, So, that's why you have to be careful. You have to be be aware and be open to different kinds of contrary information so you can learn. But no, I think it's extraordinary what's happening in the world. I think we are in a crazy time. I mean, Putin knows that Biden is so weak. The way that our government works, there can be a bunch of little puppets in the background running around, issuing commands in Biden's behalf. But it really has to do with the accountability of the generals, the ability to lead the army and the military, and command the, you know what I mean? And then you have Kamala Harris. So we're so screwed right now that I think the guy realizes he can just run buck wild, and he's really not going to get a cohesive response from America. It makes sense. So,
he's the richest man in the world, for one thing.
He is now.
Yeah, and it's all from corruption.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah, he's definitely a crime. He's definitely but you got to recognize that the whole situation in Russia is an oligarchy anyway. So he's the king oligarch, So how fucking dangerous is that?
It's dangerous.
He has to be able to lead the people.
I think he's on his last hurrah right now.
Yeah, I think he's getting old, and he's looking at the end of his life where he just blinks out, and he's trying to make sense of it all. He's had all the things there are to have. And Putin has all the mansions. He's got everything that a man could possibly want to ever achieve. But now he's got to wonder, what's it all mean, So that's a tough thing to deal with. It looks like
who does that? Who bombs a sovereign nation that wants nothing from Putin and wants to be in NATO? Who bombs that nation? I see all these images on the news. The houses bombed, neighborhoods bombed, places that look like places I've hung out.
Yeah.
Destroyed.
No, I hear that.
I just don't see it into it. I think it's going to accelerate. I think he's going to get more. It's going to be more and more barbaric. Going to get the reports out of the barbarism. And today, they've said it a few times that we're not going to have boots on the ground there at all. That's not going to happen.
It's hard to. It's hard to even insinuate.
He's going to be such a villain that we have to have boots on the ground. We have to go to war. That's how Saddam Hussein was. That's how Osama bin Laden was.
Right.
There's going to be boots on the ground, and both our kids are at the age where they might get drafted.
Right. No, I think the same thing. We talk about it all the time.
But I think before that comes, I think there's going to be a nuclear strike, a tactical nuclear strike, and Putin's going to blame it on. He's going to blame it on the nuclear power plants that he's bombing.
No, I thought about that too, bro. I swear I did. Yeah, it seems like there could be. Yeah, they could already have reasons to have the atomic energy agency in there. So I don't know I'm not really sure what he's trying to accomplish or what, who the enemy is exactly, because it's Ukrainian independence. So how does he actually win? How many of the civilians actually have to be shot or killed, or what's victory look like in Putin's, he takes Ukraine, and then he has a whole nation of people hostage that are resisting him, and then what happens next? You know what I mean? I'm trying to see what he wins here. What does he win out of all this?
A scorched earth. I mean, that's what he's doing.
Right. Yeah, he's just blowing up apartment buildings. I see that. I mean, I can't look at it too closely because it's pretty morbid, but it's coming through. What I see coming through.
So let's say the world doesn't take action and he totally takes Ukraine.
Right.
Like you just said, what is he going to get from a war-torn wasteland? Is what he's turning it into.
Right. And I'm just wondering how this plays in Russia. how the people make sense out of it, and like have to, everyone has to think this through. And it's strange, I guess, on some level. Putin, in his, from his point of view, his argument will be that he couldn't allow Ukraine to become a NATO ally because that would just be a total encirclement of Russian hegemony. You know what I mean? So they're kind of boxing them in. And you can see this coming for a while. I guess he didn't just jump out and do it. He's been building up and massing troops there for over a year. So it just kind of, as soon as Trump went out, it seemed like Putin just started doing his shit. It's been on ever since, If you look at the reports.
Yeah, look how
Trump was pushing him back.
He could do the same thing. We could have taken Putin out several times, I'm sure, recently.
Right.
Didn't go for it. Who steps in after Putin?
Right, that's the thing.
I don't know the Russian power structure.
And if they're angry and they have an axe to sharpen, if that's the right analogy, yeah, you wouldn't want to put the wrong person in at the wrong time with the wrong bad attitude. It would be horrible. But it's really just the Russian people themselves and their military that have to suffer the consequences of these leaders directing these kind of, you know what I mean? So it's got to be tough working that out. And of course, the Russian army isn't like a terribly veteran army. They haven't fought in a lot of battles. They got really destroyed in Afghanistan back in the 70s. But since then, there haven't really been major Russian military maneuvers in the world. And so these young Russian soldiers are going to have to learn how to become serious fighting individuals, Because America's army is fully geared up with, like, actual killers right now. You know what I mean? They've already been in combat. They already know how to wage a war. And that's not something that you can teach people. They have to actually gain that warrior culture.